Chapter 231. Addicted to cultivating. Fang Yuan quickly stopped out of fear. Although he used the liquor worm before, it was used to refine the primeval essence and raise its quality by one small realm. When had he ever used the snow-silver primeval essence, which was of a much higher quality? With no choice, Fang Yuan could only reduce the amount used each time, and also slow the waves crashing into his aperture walls. To think there would also be problems when the primeval essence's quality is too high. Fang Yuan was slightly aggravated. In the darkness, Bai Ningbing heard this and rolled her eyes. What sort of godsend opportunity was this? If anyone else knew, they would probably slap him to death out of anger. This was really a blissful worry. After 4 hours, this 6% snow-silver primeval essence was finally expended. His rough stone aperture walls were already showing a glimmer just from this one round of cultivation. It was like a rough jade that had started to give off a luster worthy of its quality after processing. Quick, transfer another 10%. Fang Yuan urged. Like this, they cultivated the whole night. When the rooster crowed in the morning, light had started to shine through the window, and Fang Yuan slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were shining with unconcealable excitement. He looked at his palm and clenched his fists, rank 1 peak stage. Just a night of cultivation caused him to rise from rank 1 upper stage to rank 1 peak stage. What divine speed is this? Ever since Fang Yuan started cultivating, he had never felt so comfortable and carefree, even in his previous life. Such a feeling was almost addictive. For example, when he had C-grade aptitude, he cultivated like a snail. Using the liquor worm, he walked. With a grade aptitude and heavenly essence treasure lotus, he sprinted. Nully, but what the heck was this? With this bone-flesh unity Gu, it was like he was soaring with 2 wings. Even Bai Ningbing was stunned. She was smart and quickly realized that this Gu had another greater use. This Gu can also help in breaking through a large realm. Liquor worm can only raise the cultivation by a small realm, and the Gu master had to rely on their own primeval essence when breaking through a big realm, thus aptitude was crucial. But with this bone-flesh unity Gu, they could use another person's primeval essence when breaking through to another realm. This was an insane advantage. With this Gu, Bai Gu Mountain was a complete success. Even if I sacrificed the heavenly essence treasure lotus, it would be worth it. At this time, the morning light entered the farmhouse, and Bai Ningbing sighed loudly, this world holds so many great geniuses. Grey Bone Scholar was only a rank 4 Gu master, but he managed to invent the bone-flesh unity Gu. He was a true genius. All Gu masters with titles had their specialties. In comparison, Fang and Bai were living in obscurity. Under the blazing sun, in the fields. Auntie, take a rest, I'll help you. Fang Yuan grabbed the hoe from the old lady's hand. The old lady could not compete in strength against the young and strong Fang Yuan. She felt happy seeing her hoe snatched away, smiling till her teeth was exposed. Ah, where can I find such a wonderful lad? Since the first dual cultivation, 2 days had passed. The original plan was to stay a night and leave, but after using the bone-flesh unity Gu, Fang Yuan was enjoying the rapid cultivation speed and decided to change his plans, to leaving only after he reached rank 2 at least. After all, there were still 2 to 3 years before that rock is discovered. He was in no rush. Bai Ningbing had no objections. There was a huge difference between rank 1 and rank 2. Becoming a rank 2 Gu master would be a great help to their journey. Thus, they stayed in the village and didn't leave. The old lady also did not chase them away. The truth was she wanted the 2 to stay there forever. They worked so diligently, and although one was slightly dumb while the other was ugly, they were honest kids. Fong and Bai worked in the day, one had the strength of 2 boars, while the other had the strength of a crocodile. Among mortals it was like having divine strength. Farm work was a breeze, as easy as pie. Furthermore, it was an old lady's house, what tough work could there be? Every day Fong and Bai only slept a little, but were still full of energy. Such a lifestyle, in comparison to moving in the wilds and living in harsh conditions, while worrying for their safety, was like heaven. Fong Yuan used all his free time to cultivate, like he was addicted. With the bone-flesh unity Gu, his speed could only be described with a proverb, nearly 1,000 miles a day. He reached rank 1 peak stage in the first night. And in the past few days, he was steadily building on his foundation, and his aperture walls had already turned crystal clear. At this rate, he would reach rank 2 in a few days. As the number of times they cultivated increased, the bone-flesh unity Gu's status rose in Fong Yuan's heart, surpassing the blood skull Gu and heavenly essence treasure lotus, only lower than the spring-autumn cicada. There was no need to even mention liquor worm, which could only raise one small realm. It was nothing compared to the bone-flesh unity Gu. As for blood skull Gu, it required too much investment and time. Although the heavenly essence treasure lotus was good, it could only provide help to Gu masters who were alone. As for this bone-flesh unity Gu, according to Bai Ning Bing's phrase, it was a Gu that could change even the very structure of society. This was no exaggeration and was deeply acknowledged by Fong Yuan. Bone-flesh unity Gu was a low-rank Gu, even rank 1 or 2 Gu masters could use it. Although it had many refinement requirements, the standards were really not high, and a clan with enough resources could easily refine this Gu. This Gu was useless to a loner, but to clans or sects, this was a divine weapon. Using this shortcut, clan elders could nurture the juniors, reducing the time and funds required to raise a Gu master, by many folds. With this bone-flesh unity Gu, it was no longer nurturing Gu masters, but creating Gu masters in batches. It was a difference between heaven and earth. Because of this Gu, Fong Yuan even had a change of thought the night before, getting the urge to change his plans of fighting alone to establishing a force of his own. On that topic, an organized force was just a tool to be used. Fong Yuan had created the Bloodwing demonic sect in his previous life, and if he wanted to establish an organization in this life, it would be a lot easier because he had already experienced it. But to establish an organization, the most important thing was, occupying territory filled with resources. And under layers of control, gather people and use their strength to cultivate together. Gu master cultivation was like swimming upstream, it was a journey of accumulation and naturally required resources. Thus to rank 5 Gu masters and below, having an organization's help would aid in their cultivation. However, once they reached rank 6 and experienced a qualitative change, turning from mortal to immortal, with the might of heaven and earth gathered in them, an organization became useless to them. Knowing this, it was easy to understand Fong Yuan's plans. In his previous life, Fong Yuan established the Bloodwing demonic sect to gather resources. In this life, with his knowledge of many inheritance and secrets, he could simply devour these resources and rise to rank 6 much more quickly. Why would he need to waste time and effort to create a force of his own? But now that he possessed the bone-flesh unity Gu, it would be much quicker than he previously assumed if he created an organization. There would be less investments, but greater rewards, creating Gu masters in batches and quickly form a large strength. But after Fong Yuan thought about it until morning, he dispelled his notion of creating a force. Such a divine weapon would definitely attract the greed of all the large forces, if revealed. 1709. If he really relied on the bone-flesh unity Gu to create an organization, it would be courting death. Such a divine weapon would definitely attract the greed of all the large forces, if revealed. Not to say that he was starting from scratch, even a clan leader with some foundation would not dare to use the bone-flesh unity Gu so openly. It truly attracted the jealousy of others. Even Wu clan, the number one clan in the southern borders, would not dare to use it alone. Fang Yuan estimated there needed to be an alliance of at least Wu clan, Fei clan, Tai clan and Shang clan to guard against the greed of all the Gu masters over the world, if they were to use bone-flesh unity Gu in large scale. If I want to create a force, even if it starts to look bright, I will get exterminated from all sides. By then, even if I escape, the foundation that I created would be lost. At the end, I would even become a complete loser, pursued by everyone. Fang Yuan had completely calmed down, knowing that this was a dead path, thus he affirmed his will of fighting alone in a large-scale battle. But to be honest, Bai Sheng and Bai Hua were quite intelligent. In their previous life, although they used the bone-flesh unity Gu and became the righteous twin stars, they did not use this power to grow their clan's force. With their intentional misleading, although the bone-flesh unity Gu's reputation was established, people greatly underestimated its ability. Fang Yuan recalled, and sensed the wisdom in these two twin stars. Being able to come to Bai Gu Mountain this time and killing the siblings prematurely, could be considered a great accomplishment. But Fang Yuan thought again, this bone-flesh unity Gu can only be used by two people. Bai Hua and Bai Sheng must have used the refinement method on the scroll. Without my unique alteration, the difficulty in defining the bone-flesh unity Gu is greatly increased. It is possible that they did not even think of this prospect. After thinking for so much, Fang Yuan's head was starting to hurt. He plowed the fields under the intense sun as he shook his head, collecting his dispersed thoughts. After all, these things were not important and it was useless to think about it. Unfortunately, I do not have Gu worms that aid in thinking like creative thinking Gu, intelligent heart Gu, tactful Gu and lightning thoughts Gu. Even at the very least, the bookworm would suffice. It seems I can only purchase them when I get to Shang Clan City. The old lady's field was small. Fang Yuan quickly plowed half of it, when Bai Ningbing felt interest and started to help on her own accord. She had seen farmers plowing fields on Qing Mao Mountain, but back then she was still muddle-headed, and now that she was in this state, she wanted to experience the wonders in it. Only when the night approached, did they start eating in front of the old lady's house. You must be hungry, there are still sweet potatoes in the pot, it will definitely fill you up. The old lady grinned as she scooped 2 bowls of rice. This rice was not the superior rice from the rice bag grass, but rough grains. However, the two were not picky eaters anyway. Eat slowly, I have good news to share with you too. On the table, the old lady smiled mysteriously. Chapter 232, Intense Pain of Changing Bone. Auntie, what good news do you have? Fang Yuan immediately asked with a foolish grin. As he was asking, an old man walked in from outside. Bai Ningbing secretly glanced at the old man. This old man was a Gu master. However, he only possessed rank 1 initial stage cultivation and was very old, there was nothing to worry. Young man, this is our village head. The old lady introduced the man. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing hurriedly stood up. Fang Yuan scratched his head appearing to be uneasy. Honorable village head, I am. He hadn't even introduced himself when the village head waved his hand with a smile. I know, you two are outsiders. Gu masters could sense the aura of other Gu masters. However, Fang and Bai had the breath concealment Gu in their ears, their Gu master aura were concealed, and the village head couldn't detect it. The old village head had obtained the report on these two strangers few days ago. But he didn't take it to heart. These days, Besides Fong and Bai, there were many new people who had come to the village and lodged. If you want to come, just come, why is there a need to bring in gifts? The old lady grumbled. The old village head hadn't come empty-handed, he was holding a string of tied fishes. I caught the fish this morning from the pool. Your teeth aren't in a good condition, drink some fish soup to recover your health. The old village head smiled. The old lady gave him a supercilious look before accepting the fish. I will go cook the fish soup. One could sense the happiness in her voice. Bai Ningbing couldn't sense anything from how the two elderly behaved and spoke to each other. Fong Yuan's gaze, however, flashed, realizing this old man and the old lady might probably have fallen in love at this old age. Auntie, let me do it. Fong Yuan immediately said. You guys just sit and chat. There is good news. The old lady quickly waved her hand, indicating Fong and Bai to sit. I have told your story to the villagers, the village head is a Gu master, he can help you guys. Gu master. Fong Yuan's eyes immediately opened as wide as saucers, he appeared stunned and stumped as he stood there. Bai Ningbing almost couldn't help rolling her eyes at Fong Yuan's expression. She also did her best to show a shocked expression, but her performance was clearly far behind Fong Yuan's, and she knew this clearly. The old village head laughed loudly at Fong Yuan's expression, he immediately felt this ugly and silly guy was somewhat adorable. Compared to Bai Ningbing who only looked somewhat stunned, the old village head liked Fong Yuan more. Come and sit down, you two youngsters, don't be reserved. He waved and sat down first. Fong Yuan acted bashful before he sat down while puffing hard, he appeared nervous. Bai Ningbing also followed his expression from behind, but it looked somewhat unnatural. The old village head, however, didn't suspect anything. I heard you guys had gone to sell herbs and salted meat, but unfortunately came across a wild beast. Your auntie told everything to me, you have helped her a lot these days. I have some purple maple leaves here. In a few days, a caravan will be coming here. You can sell these purple maple leaves and recover your capital. When Bai Ningbing realized this was the good news the old lady was talking about, she immediately lost her interest. This. Fong Yuan stuttered with happiness, tears flowed out from his eyes as he choked with emotion. Honored sir, you are really a good person, a great person. The old village head patted the shoulder of this devil and tried to sympathize. No need to say that. Any person has their ups and downs in life. But I can't just give these purple maple leaves to you, otherwise the villagers will say something about it. How about this, go help plow the fields in the eastern end of the village, you just need to do it for 7 days until the caravan arrives. He was actually really grateful to Fong and Bai. He had been a mortal who was born and raised in this village, he and the old lady had been childhood sweethearts. But the affairs of the world was fickle, the old lady was married off to someone else. During one time when a caravan had come by, a Gu master noticed his intelligence and gave him some help, turning him into a Gu master. Because of this, he became the village head. Although he still had feelings for the old lady, both of them had families and children and it would leave a bad impression if he stayed overly in touch with her. Although he is the village head, he couldn't brazenly assist her. He had actually been secretly observing Fong and Bai, and felt their nature wasn't bad, they were hardworking and were honest kids, just that their luck was a bit bad. Hence, when the old lady told their story to him, he immediately agreed to help. You agreed to the village head during the dinner. Are you really thinking of plowing the fields for 7 days for a cart of that purple whatever leaves? In the house at night, Bai Ningbing puzzledly asked. Purple maple leaves is of course not my true objective. Didn't you hear during the meal? A caravan will be passing through this place. Fong Yuan replied. So what? Didn't you mention that caravans pass through Ziyu Mountain all year round? The caravans passed through once a year sometimes, and sometimes, once per half a year. What I had not expected was that a caravan would be coming in just a few days. I made some indirect inquiries and found that this caravan is traveling from east to west. Even if it doesn't go to Xianxia City, it will at least travel along our destination. Bai Ningbing suddenly understood. You want to join the caravan and borrow their strength to reach Xianxia City? She pondered over it for a while, increasingly feeling this was a great method. First of all, Earth-Hearing Ear Grass was destroyed. They lacked investigative Gu, which meant it would be quite troublesome if they were to travel by themselves. Secondly, they had committed crimes. The Bai clan was definitely chasing after them without rest. Joining the caravan was a great way to cover up their tracks. Finally, they had breath concealment Gu and were able to disguise as mortals. The caravans would definitely take precautions against foreign Gu masters, but definitely wouldn't have much vigilance against mortals. Even if they were to be discovered, there wouldn't be any problems. When that time comes, with a rank 3 and a rank 2 cultivations, they could still make an escape. The heads of the caravans normally possessed rank 3 cultivation. Those that were rank 4 like Jia Fu were quite rare. But even if we disguise as mortals, could we just casually enter the caravan? Bai Ningbing thought about it, but still had this worry. Fang Yuan chuckled. Of course, we won't be able to just casually join a caravan, we would need a guarantor even as mortals. But I reckon the old village head can resolve this problem for us. Only then did Bai Ningbing felt relieved and let go of her worry. I was worried for nothing. Indeed, with this guy's craftiness, how could he not have thought of this loophole? She thought. All right. I will be able to break through to rank 2 initial stage after 7 days. And I think it is time to use the Iron Bone Gu and Jade Bone Gu. Bai Ningbing's mouth twitched before saying lightly, I already told you before to use them, but you didn't agree and just nurtured them vainly for so many days, wasting so much spring milk. Fang Yuan heaved a deep sigh. Youngster, you are ignorant and thus fearless of how much pain is involved in this. Tonight, we won't do dual cultivation. I need to properly rest my mind before I use the Iron Bone Gu tomorrow night. Next day, Fang and Bai went to work the fields in the eastern end of the village like their agreement. Fang Yuan intentionally worked from morning till sunset. Hi's body contained enormous strength. This bit of work wasn't even worthy to be mentioned, but he could already hear other farmers taking notice of him and even looking up to him. At night, he sat cross-legged on the bed and concentrated on transferring primeval essence into the Iron Bone Gu within his aperture. This Gu was like a bone, with rounded and smooth ends, and slender mid-area. The whole bone was jet black as if it was made from iron. This Gu was a rank 3 Gu and it required instant consumption of great amounts of primeval essence to be activated. Fang Yuan was just a rank 1 Gu master and shouldn't have been able to use it. But after Bai Ningbing transferred a lot of his snow-silver primeval essence, he was barely qualified to activate it. The transferred snow-silver primeval essence was almost completely used up in transferring to the Iron Bone Gu. This Gu first let out dark radiance before immediately melting down into iron liquid. It flew out from the aperture and merged with Fang Yuan's skeleton. Pain. An intense and inconceivable pain. Fang Yuan felt like his heart was branded by a scalding hot branding iron. Anywhere the iron liquid passed through in the bones felt like it was being roasted in burning coals. This kind of pain penetrated even the soul. Fang Yuan's face distorted under this pain. Immediately following, drops of sweat began to fall from Fang Yuan's forehead, and in the next moment, his whole body was drenched with sweat. After a long while, Fang Yuan couldn't endure the pain any longer and let out a groan. Bai Ningbing's expression changed. Because of the darkness, she hadn't been able to clearly see Fang Yuan's earlier expression and situation, but from this oppressed groan, she judged this pain was no small matter. She knew what insane willpower Fang Yuan had. He hadn't let out a word even when his whole body was covered with flames. But after using the iron bone gu, he let out such a sound. From this, one could tell how intense the pain was. Among the Gu master's cultivation, three big aspects of nurture, use and refine. In regards to use, some Gu were extremely peculiar. Iron bone Gu was one of those, giving extremely intense pain when used. Unfortunately, one needed to endure this pain, and if in case they lost consciousness in the middle, all their efforts would be wasted. Historically, many famous Gu masters had died from pain of using Gu like the iron bone Gu. Fang Yuan clenched his teeth and persevered. The unbearable pain continued to flood in. He involuntarily let out several groan-like snorts from his nose. In the end, his whole body was almost paralyzed from the pain. He couldn't even exert any more strength in his jaws. When all of his bones were dyed a layer of black by the molten iron, he finally relaxed, and almost instantly, a burst of dizziness attacked him. His eyes blacked out and he started losing consciousness. However, he forcibly persevered, and after taking few deep breaths, he slowly laid down. "Is it over?" Bai Ningbing's voice came from the darkness. "Naturally." Fang Yuan sucked in cold air, his voice was hoarse but stable. "Go to sleep, we still need to work tomorrow." "Okay." Bai Ningbing felt greatly disappointed when she realized Fang Yuan was still able to be clear-headed. If he had fainted, she might have had a chance to get hold of the Yanggu. "No, that isn't right. Yanggu is inside Fang Yuan's aperture. How can I take it out without any special means?" Thinking of this, she let go her dark thoughts. The next day, Fang Yuan didn't go to work, instead staying in bed. The intense pain was still lingering around and tormenting him. If he made even a slight movement, the violent pain that emerged felt like a chainsaw was sawing at his nerves. The pain was temporarily dominating him and putting him into an extremely weak state. Let alone farm work, he was not able to even leave the bed and walk. At this instance, Bai Ningbing realized that Fang Yuan had forcibly kept up a facade last night. Resultantly, she went to the farm and did the work alone. By evening, Fang Yuan was able to make some movements. Bai Ningbing refused to believe him and used the jade bone gu. Obviously, she found out the absurd amount of pain Fang Yuan had suffered. As prideful as she was, she couldn't help groaning in pain and even grabbing the bed sheets. However, even though her whole body was trembling and shaking, she was able to persist till the end. An intense dizziness attacked her immediately after her success. She fell down on the bed and instantly lost her consciousness. Chapter 233, A Deep Misunderstanding. On the second day, it was Bai Ningbing's turn to lie on the bed, in so much pain that she could not move at all. Fang Yuan had recovered mostly, going off to plow the fields at the east of the hamlet. The old lady went into the room, asking in concern. Bai Ningbing kept saying she was fine, that she was tired after a day of physical work, and that she only needed to rest for a day. The old lady gave an understanding smile. "Indeed you were tired, your actions these past 2 days were slightly loud, I could hear it all." "What?" Bai Ningbing could not understand it. "Young lady, stop keeping it from me, I could tell a mile away." The old lady laughed. Bai Ningbing's pupils shrunk. Did her identity get exposed? How can that be? At once, a deep killing intent arose in her, but she could not bear to do it. She could cold-heartedly watch the Bai clan siblings burn to death, but that is because the Bai clan was destined to be their enemies. Although she was proud, she was not merciless like Fang Yuan. Towards people who had helped her, she would not be able to act. The old lady in front of her was such a case, and so was the former Bai clan leader, from Bai Ningbing's clan. The old lady held no suspicions towards Bai Ningbing. She grabbed her hand and patted, "Young lady, I can tell these few days, how can guys have such a butt and waist like yours? No wonder you wear a straw hat, and do not like talking. Although I am old, I am still a woman. We women have a talent compared to guys, that is, we are meticulous." Ah! Bai Ningbing did not know what to say. The old lady was enthusiastic, speaking in an understanding tone. "I understand you, as a woman, dressing up like this outside to protect yourself, otherwise accidents might occur." Bai Ningbing was speechless. She hated people using the word woman to trigger her nerves. But towards this enthusiastic and simple old lady, she was very helpless. The old lady smiled until her eyes were a straight line, suddenly suppressing her voice. "You two must be a couple, right? You have been too loud these days, I could even hear you from far away. I don't want to say this, but, those actions, you have to restrain yourselves." This was simply a nightmare. Bai Ningbing's expression froze, like she was zapped by lightning. "Auntie, it is not what you think." A long while later, she barely squeezed out this sentence, her expression extremely stiff. "Sigh, why are you so shy? It's nothing, you can tell me everything. I've lived for so many years, what have I not seen?" The granny winked, laughing until her teeth were showing. And then her gaze shifted to the bed, subconsciously or not. Bai Ningbing followed her gaze, and just wanted to kill herself. But honestly, the bed sheets were torn by her. Next, the old lady said a few things to her, but Bai Ningbing's brain was in a mess, not listening to a single word. In the afternoon, when Fang Yuan came back to eat, the old lady blocked him at the door, kindly reminding, "Lad, your wife has told me already. I know youngsters are in heat, but you have to take care of your own bodies, and even more concern for your wife. Remember my words, okay?" Ha! Fang Yuan opened his mouth wide, not able to react to what he has just heard. The old lady clicked her tongue, using a dissatisfied and helpless tone. "Everything about you is good, except that you are too simple. Being so honest, you'll lose out eventually." If Guyu clan, Tai Divine Investigator, or Bai Hua and Bai Xing heard these words, they might jump out of their graves. Fang Yuan stood on the spot in daze. Suddenly light flashed across his eyes, and he finally got it. "Oh, that, hee." He scratched his head sheepishly, nodding, "Auntie, you are right, I get it." At the dinner table, he saw Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing looked at him coldly, her body almost emitting cold air. The corners of Fang Yuan's eyes had been twitching non-stop. This matter was a reminder to Fang Yuan as well. Fang Yuan can easily portray any role, that is because he has a rich experience and broad horizon. But Bai Ningbing was not, because even after disguise, she still has her flaws. Thankfully, this flaw is small, and in this world, whenever a woman traveled, she would definitely dress up as a male, to reduce the potential danger she might encounter. Even though this misunderstanding was very awkward, Fang Yuan had to admit that this can better conceal their true identities. Bai Ningbing's mood became worse. That night, she asked Fang Yuan again, when he can return the Gu to her. Fang Yuan could only answer, that once he reached rank 3, he would return it to her. Bai Ningbing snorted. She understood Fang Yuan, she would rather die than trust Fang Yuan's words. But now she could not take the Gu by force yet. "When I get to Shang Clan City, I have to get at least a poison vow Gu, 3-hand Gu, or even seize Gu would work too." Thinking so, Bai Ningbing was even more anxious about getting to Shang Clan City. Other than dual cultivation, Fang Yuan's cultivation has a new chapter added to it. That is, using the crocodile strength Gu to increase his strength. Speaking of which, being able to feed the crocodile strength Gu to this date, was out of Fong Yuan's expectations. The ones to thank were the Bai clan. It was due to getting large amount of crocodile meat from them that Fong Yuan was able to raise it to now. Otherwise, it would have starved to death long ago. Crocodile Strength Gu was like black and white boar Gu, they permanently added strength to the Gu master's body. But before rank 6, a Gu master still has a mortal body. Like a bowl, it cannot contain a lake, a Gu master's body has its limits eventually. That is also why Fong Yuan could not use the Crocodile Strength Gu before. But now, he had obtained the Iron Bones Gu and Jade Bones Gu from Bai Gu Mountain. These two Gu were expenditure type Gu. Each had their merits, and their values were about the same, able to permanently improve the Gu master's physique. Choosing which Gu decides the progression route of the Gu master. When Gu masters use Gu, there were much to consider. Some Gu could not be used together, while some complemented each other and produced greater effect when used together. Bai Ningbing once used the ice muscles Gu, thus her body was made of ice muscles. Ice muscles stopped perspiration, thus she cannot use a Gu like blood sweat Gu in the future. And if she uses the Jade Bones Gu, her original mortal bones would become Jade Bones. Ice muscles and Jade Bones, it was a superb combination. Each person has their own needs, Ice muscles Jade Bones might suit Bai Ningbing, but it does not suit Fong Yuan. Considering the legendary Gu at Shang Clan City, Fong Yuan plans, he wanted to form the most effective, Steel Tendon, Iron Bones. Being able to get the Iron Bones Gu on Bai Gu Mountain, it was a perfect scenario for him. After using the Iron Bones Gu, Fong Yuan's bones were tough as iron now. With his body foundation improved, he can now add the strength of one crocodile in addition to the strength of 2 boars. His strength continued to rise. 7 days passed in a flash. According to their initial agreement, Fong Yuan got a cart of purple maple leaves from the old village head. These goods were very cheap, the entire cart could not even sell for 2 primeval stones. But this was not Fong Yuan's objective, he only wanted to hide his identity and follow and get closer to the caravan. When the caravan arrived, it was 3 days later than the old village had expected. Only on the 9th day did they appear. The originally peaceful town boomed with life again. The caravan's size was huge. Bus-sized black-skinned fat beetles carried goods and people as they crawled slowly. Beside them, colored ostriches dragged the dray. Mountain-large spiders wrapped boxes and containers on their bodies, winged snakes meandered, and toads carried large bundles on them. These stead-type Gu formed the main body of the caravan. Other than that, there were large numbers of mortals pulling cows, horses, or carrying bamboo bags. This year's caravan is finally here. Every time I see these snakes, I get a little scared. Lord Gu masters are really amazing, they can make these ruthless snakes so tame. I hope my cured meat can be sold this time, I don't expect a high price, I'll be satisfied with just a few primeval stone fragments. Yeah, our luck is not as good as the outsider. The village head is too biased, that is an entire cart of purple maple leaves, to think he gave them away like that. The villagers made many temporary stalls at the village entrance, as Fong Yuan and Bai Ningbing dragged a cart of purple maple leaves, mixed among them. Among these people, some were all locals, others were from other villages, carrying goods with them. Places with people will have competition for benefits. Fong and Bai, even though they stay at the village and plowed fields for 7 days, their cart of purple maple leaves attracted many jealous gazes into them. Fong Yuan, of course, did not pay them any attention. He was secretly observing the members of the approaching caravan. This caravan is a mixed one, with many different clan forces among them gathered together. It was not like the Jia clan caravan, with Jia clan as the main force. This caravan, other than the selected leader, there were also a number of vice leaders, like a alliance army. This was good news to Fong Yuan. The more complex the structure of the caravan, the easier it is for him to mix in. Hey, how much are you selling this cart of purple maple leaves? Someone quickly came to ask for prices. 2.5 primeval stones. Fong Yuan said. 2.5. You might as well go rob. The person stared with wide-opened eyes. Buy it or leave. Bai Ning Bing said at the side. Humph. The person waved his sleeves and walked off. If they really sold this cart, what excuse would Fong and Bai use to join the caravan? Thus, they purposely denied 3 potential buyers and deterred them. Until evening, they still did not manage to sell the cart of purple maple leaves. Instead, others managed to sell most of their medicine grass, cured meat, milk, etc. After all, the caravan was huge, they needed to replenish these goods. Many people saw Fong and Bai as a joke, and some even start to mock them. Some kind people reminded them to reduce the price appropriately. But Fong and Bai paid them all no heed. Before night time, Fong Yuan pretended to be dejected, dragging this cart of purple maple leaves back to the old village head's house. The old village head asked, and sighed, "You too, I told you that 2 primeval stones were already a high price. We can sell it even for 1.5. Why didn't you listen to me? Adamantly selling at 2.5. Chapter 234, Arrest Warrant. You have to know, there are lots of purple maple leaves on Xiu Mountain. Those people buy it because it is more convenient for them, and they can save time from picking them. Sigh, it's pointless to tell you now. Never mind, never mind. The old village head continuously sighed. Fong Yuan bobbed his head. We just wanted to sell it for more primeval stones, one is to recoup the cost, the other is to take care of our parents. Who would have thought that after so much effort, it could not be sold? He sounded anxious, a hint of crying in his speech. Hearing his words, the old village head's heart softened, the grudge in his heart dispersing by more than half. Fong Yuan said again, "No worries, Lord Village Head, I have decided to follow the caravan tomorrow. By lowering the price, I'm sure we can sell it eventually." Follow the caravan? Who allowed you to follow the caravan? The old village head stared with wide-opened eyes. Fong Yuan said, "As a matter of fact, I saw many mortals in the caravan. If they can follow, why can we?" The old village head rested his head on his arm. Those are the family servants of the Lord Gu masters. You think simply anyone can just follow them? What if people with ill intentions mix in among them? Ah! Fong Yuan's mouth opened wide, stunned on the spot. Then how? The caravan is leaving tomorrow. Sigh. The old man sighed deeply. Never mind, I'll help you to the end. Tomorrow I'll beg them to let you into the caravan, it'll all be up to your fate. The sun had just rose, and there were still a few stars visible in the light blue sky. Looking afar, Xiu Mountain is enveloped in a dark purple color, peaceful and mysterious. After a night of rest, the caravan had started loading up their goods already. Inspect the goods once more. Tie the ropes tightly. If anything drops during the journey, we will punish you with 100 beatings. Quick, 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 feed our black-skinned beetles till full. Gu masters ordered and sent their family servants into a busy state. Some had bad temper, holding a whip in their hands, whoever moved slowly would be whipped. Some loved their Gu worms, and fed them personally. Lord Chen. The old village head bowed, paying respects to one of the vice leaders in the caravan. "Oh, old Zhang, I am busy here, just tell me what you have to say." This Chen Gu master said. "It is like this. I have 2 juniors, doing small business. Before the old village head finished, Gu master suddenly shouted, Xianxia, why are you in a daze? Go and feed the winged snakes, you think those servants can feed them properly? That snake of yours had already swallowed 3 servants these few days. Yes, clan elder. Xianxia was grabbed, raising his head and said. But Gu master did not let go of him, chiding again, how many times have I told you, call me clan elder in the village, in the caravan, you have to address me as vice leader. Yes, 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 Lord Vice Leader. Xianxia answered, running away swiftly. This rascal. Gu master scolded under his breath in anger, before turning to the old village head, what did you say earlier? Oh. You want me to vouch for your 2 juniors to enter the caravan? Lord is truly wise, that is the case. Old village head quickly answered. That. Gu master purposely hummed. The old village head was turned into a Gu master by him, because this route needed for the caravan to pass by, he needed someone who worked for him. For caravans traveling, those villages were crucial, but the mortal hamlets along the way cannot be ignored as well, they were equally important. The caravans had many people and much to do, much living resources would be quickly expended and need to be replenished along the way. There are also servants, when they encounter danger, some servants die and manpower becomes lacking. The caravan will have to select some mortals in those hamlets to recruit. Speaking of which, among Gu master's family servants, manpower was starting to feel lacking, after all mortals had cheap lives, they were just a type of expendable resources that can talk and move. Henceforth, when I cross by Ziyu Mountain, I will still need to make use of old Zhang, if I don't accede to his request, wouldn't that discourage him? Although I am lacking manpower now, I cannot agree so easily. I have to wait, and sell this favor at a good price. Gu master was still considering, when a messenger Gu master from the caravan came running. There was a stack of paper in his hand, as he ran and shouted, all members take note, there is a new arrest warrant, there is a new arrest warrant. He shouted as he pasted a piece of paper on a black-skinned fat beetle's body. New arrest warrant? From which clan? How much bounty, retrieve it for me. Gu master was interested. Yes, vice leader. The messenger Gu master quickly handed over a piece of paper. Gu master looked, oh, an arrest warrant from Bai clan. As long as information is accurate, they will give 1,000 primeval stones. So much. Gu master's eyes shone, gaining interest in the matter. There were 2 prices on the warrant, one was information price, the other was killing price. Information priced at 1,000 primeval stones, normally it is used for a wanted demonic cultivator that has made a name for himself. But this poster only showed 2 youngsters, with proper features, and one was even very beautiful. One male, one female, these were 2 newbies. One is a rank 1 Gu master, the other is rank 3. With information price of 1,000 primeval stones, and killing price of 8,000 primeval stones. It seems that Bai clan hates these 2 demonic rascals to the core. Hee hee. Gu master laughed at their predicament, so long as it is not his Qin family. What he did not know was, these 2 demonic rascals were near him. The old village head took a look at the arrest warrant, and a chill came from within his heart. Gu master's world is really dangerous, such a beautiful youngster, is actually a criminal demonic cultivator. Let's just hope that they are not coming to our village. Alright, seeing how you've worked hard for all these years old Zhang, I will accede to your request. Gu master said. Ah, thank you Lord. Lord, I will call them here now. The old village head was overjoyed. Gu master waved his hand, no need, I'm very busy. Just get them to report to Xianxia. Towards two mortals, he held no interest. At the same time, he did not connect them to the arrest warrant in his hand. After all, this is the Bai clan's request, and they were thousands of li away. Gu master subconsciously felt that he at a very safe distance away. This was a very common thinking. Even on modern Earth, when murder cases happen in cities, no matter how ruthless and vile it is, other cities do not feel much danger, even if transportation is so advanced. Other than that, they also have a fluke mind mentality. In this vast world, where people lived everywhere, how would these two demonic scoundrels come to my caravan? Then I would be way too unlucky. It's impossible. People always tend to think that unlucky events would not occur on themselves. Moreover, many people in arrest warrants are extremely vicious and cruel characters, attracting people's attention. Two newbies like Fong and Bai, one rank 3 and one rank 1, what could they amount to? Xianxia saw the two of them but did not think of the warrant at all. Fong and Bai's image had changed completely, not just the disfigured Fong Yuan, but after these days of practicing, she also started to become more natural. Xianxia lost interest immediately, especially Fong Yuan's appearance made him disgusted. He was only rank 1, while Fong Yuan rose to rank 2 several days ago. Xianxia observed them carelessly, and did not feel any Gu master aura, thus calling an old attendant and getting him to arrange Fong and Bai's jobs. "What are your names?" the old attendant asked. Only at this time did someone ask for their names. "My name is Hei Tu, my wife is called Bai Yun," Fong Yuan casually said. "Female?" the old attendant frowned. He stared at Bai Ningbing and looked, seeing her dark skin appearance and her dazed look, "She's called Bai Yun 1. This Hei Tu is also really ugly. Women are trouble, you have to be more careful. If something happens, don't blame me for not reminding you guys," the old attendant said. "I know, this cart beside me is filled with purple maple leaves. My wife is staying on the cart and taking care of the goods. I do not want much interaction with other people," Fong Yuan said. "Humph, good that you understand." The old attendant arranged a physical task for the two, to move goods, but for Fong Yuan and Bai Ningbing, it is no issue at all, but Bai Ningbing had to pretend and act like she was out of breath constantly, causing her mental fatigue. Not far away, some family servants were slacking, resting at a corner. Their gazes were directed towards Fong and Bai. "Brother Chang, there's two newcomers. Some people saw them bringing in their private goods. That's an entire cart of purple maple leaves," a thin family servant said excitedly. Depriving newcomers, it was the ritual that the caravan old-timers often did. Brother Chang squatted on the ground, squinting. "I see it. Skinny monkey, go test them out." His body was strong as an ox, although his muscles were developed, he was not a rash person. In this world where Gu masters ruled above all, the strength of a mortal is nothing spectacular. Being able to become the most important person in this small circle, he had some wits after all. Skinny Monkey sighed. Under everyone's supervision, he got near to Fong Yuan. "Hey brother, where are you from?" "Others call me Brother Monkey. From now on we will be working together. I hope we can work together amicably." Skinny Monkey forced out a smile. Fong Yuan gave him a glance, only saying a word, "Scram." Skinny Monkey's eyes expanded as he showed a look of rage. Fong Yuan did not look at him, but continued moving his goods. He had worked in the caravan in his previous life, extremely clear of such rituals. In plain words, Skinny Monkey was testing water, using words to test out Fong Yuan's identity. If he did not have any backing, they would work together and bully him, depriving him of some benefits. But the truth is, not only are humans like this, Gu masters were the same. they just did it more elegantly. Moving alone and risking their lives, it included fighting with wild beasts. Moving together in groups, it was competing with their own kind. At places with benefits, there were conflicts. There is only so much space after all, everyone wants to live better, and have more room to themselves. What can they do? They can only invade other people's spaces. Skinny Monkey had not expected Fang Yuan to not give face, thus he was stunned at the spot, staring intently at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan did not give a thought about such a character. Mortals were cheap as grass, even if one or two were killed, so what? As long as the goods were still delivered, the Gu masters in charge would not care. Even if they did, Fang Yuan had backup methods to resolve this issue. All in all, trying to provoke Fang Yuan, these family servants were courting death. What, why are you not scramming, you want me to chase you away? Fang Yuan gave Skinny Monkey a cold look again. Skinny Monkey snorted, but did not explode in anger, instead taking his leave. Such a strong attitude, it caused Brother Chang to feel threatened. Did these two have some sort of background? Otherwise how could they be so arrogant? I had better check up on their backgrounds first. Chapter 235, Xianxia. The caravan traveled for the whole day, and chose a valley to camp for the night. The day went pretty good for the caravan as they only came across 3 small beast groups. They killed 2 groups and chased one away. Calculating the losses and the profits they made from killing the beast groups, they had made some profits instead. The setting sun dyed the clouds with colors: red, orange, grayish-red, purple. There were all kinds of colors. The clouds also formed into all kinds of shapes, appearing like a roaring lion one moment, or galloping Pegasus the next moment, or a blossoming sea of flowers. The multicolored sunlight shone upon the valley which resembled a jade-green gem. After the caravan finished all the arrangements for the night, there was a certain area in the caravan that was a cacophony of noises. Come, have a look, today's freshly slaughtered beast meat. Buttermilk, fragrant and sweet buttermilk. Only 10 pieces of clothing remaining, stock clearance sale. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing were also among the crowd. They dragged their handcart and occupied an area. At their left was a stall selling wild herbs and at their right was a stall selling milk. Bai Ningbing was rather interested in all this as she looked all around her, to think there would be a small bazaar like this in the caravan. If there is consumption, there will be transactions, and the consumption will thus stimulate marketplaces. Fang Yuan answered. Bai Ningbing's eyes flashed, these words were truly incisive. She looked at Fang Yuan. Are you planning on selling these purple maple leaves? Fang Yuan slightly nodded his head. We have already entered the caravan so we can just conveniently dispose of them now. Keeping them with us will only attract the greed of some scoundrels. What's more, it wasn't easy to preserve purple maple leaves. They had it for just over a day, and already the purple maple leaves on Fang Yuan's cart were showing signs of withering. And as time continued to pass, their value will only get lesser and lesser. Of course, Fang Yuan didn't care about measly 2 primeval stones. However, just throwing them off wouldn't be in accord to their current identities, and would only serve to raise suspicions. The small bazaar in the caravan is divided into 2 types. The one we are dealing in is only the transactions between mortals and it will be held every day. Another type is the transactions between Gu masters, which is held once a week. Fang Yuan said. Bai Ningbing's blue eyes, covered by the straw hat, slightly brightened. It would be helpful to us if we could join the small bazaar held for Gu masters. Shang Clan City is still a great distance away. If not anything else, we need an investigative Gu to prevent any unforeseen circumstances. I have already planned this out but it's still too early. Fong Yuan confidently smiled as he thought of a certain thing in his Tusita flower. The two were discussing softly, when a male servant walked over while staggering. He was wearing shabby and torn clothes, his face filled with bloodstains, a clear resemblance to beggars. As he walked to the stall beside Fong Yuan's, and saw the pots filled with milk, he swallowed his saliva. "Brother, could you give me some milk to drink?" "Go away. Don't hinder my business." The milk seller impatiently waved his hands. This male servant, helplessly, walked away towards Fong and Bai's cart, two brothers. He hadn't even finished saying his sentence, when Fong Yuan walked to the front and kicked him, shouting with a vicious tone, "Screw off." The male servant fell down to the ground, his ragged clothes were stained by the black muddy soil. His previous wounds were stimulated by the kick, making him grimace in pain. He climbed up with great difficulty, and looked at Fong Yuan with hatred. "Good, I will remember this, we are all mortals, everyone has a bad day." "Humph." Fong Yuan's expression turned cold as he raised his feet again. Bam! This servant fell to the ground again. "Dare to say one more word?" Fong Yuan stared down at this servant fiercely. The servant gave a vicious glare at Fong Yuan as he crawled up, but he didn't dare to squeak a word. However, just as he stood up, he was again met with Fong Yuan's kick. "I don't like your expression." Fong Yuan indifferently spoke with his arms crossed at his chest. The servant lowered his head and crawled up silently, not daring to look at Fong Yuan again. He didn't continue begging anymore and walked far away. Looking at his departing figure, Bai Ningbing asked in bewilderment, "Strange, how can there be a beggar in the caravan?" "This is normal. This servant must have made a mistake or his master is in bad mood today." In short, he was beaten by a Gu master and also had his meal cancelled. Fong Yuan shrugged his shoulders, his gaze, however, coldly glanced towards a corner. In a corner, 3 to 4 sturdily built servants were catching new faces, bullying the newcomers. After noticing the situation at Fong Yuan's, they retrieved their gazes and looked at other targets. Mortals had cheap lives, their status were extremely low, and their survival was as difficult as walking on steel wire. Inside the caravan, the Gu masters could easily beat them to death and take their lives like cutting grass. Anyway, mortals like them could be replenished easily in the hamlets along the way. Every time the caravans came across danger, there would be large numbers of dying mortals. Besides these, there were also secret and almost desperate struggles between the mortals themselves. Fong Yuan had just arrived at the caravan, but two groups already wanted to find troubles for him. He, naturally, wasn't afraid of these trouble, and could easily resolve them, but he would rather resolve them earlier. Of course, there were some mortals who lived beautiful lives. Most of them were those with backgrounds or were relatives and friends of Gu masters, using this identity to do as they liked. After the beggar walked away, two groups of mortals approached Fong Yuan. The head of one group was an old man with sharp eyes. After asking Fong Yuan for the price, he immediately lowered the price to a quarter. Fong Yuan reckoned this old geezer's identity should be the chief supervisor in charge of arranging the tasks for the servants. The head of another group was a woman. She was actually wearing silk clothing and her eyes gave off seductive glances. Fong Yuan immediately understood she must be a sex tool of a certain or some male Gu masters. The two heads were both accompanied by a large number of people, and although they were mortals, their status were extremely evident. They lowered the price to a very low amount, with the intention of buying low and selling high. They had some wealth and were not like most of the servants who could not even be sure if they could get a meal that day. While Fong Yuan had no need for this cart of purple maple leaves, in order to match with his current identity and not let the cat out of the bag, he refused the lowered prices of these two people. The old man left with pleasant countenance, but there was threat hidden in his tone. The woman just walked away while cursing and swearing. "I will sell this cart of rotten leaves to the next person that comes to bid." Just when Fang Yuan was pondering over his next action, the small bazaar suddenly went in an uproar. Some people excitedly cheered and shouted. "The kind-hearted lady of Zhang clan has arrived. Lady Zhang is compassionate and kind, she is a fairy incarnate. She is a really good person, I won't go hungry today." "What's happening?" Bai Ningbing surveyed the situation and saw a green image appearing through the entrance of the bazaar. Fang Yuan was also bewildered. "What's up with this? Lady Zhang? Fairy Zhang?" A group of servants flocked over to the woman, and instantly, the bazaar entrance was crowded. These people were mostly the ones who were punished by Gu masters and didn't have anything to eat now. The man who Fang Yuan kicked earlier was also among them, extending his neck and arms. "Don't be in a hurry everyone, there is plenty of it, slow down," the green-clothed girl said. Her voice was gentle and soft, and was immediately submerged in the shouts of the crowd. "Keep your mouths shut. Line up and come one by one. Anyone that dares to rush over or shout, will immediately be slashed by me." Suddenly, a thunderous voice resounded within the little bazaar. An old but tough Gu master appeared in everyone's sights. And as he gazed at everyone with his ferocious gaze, the noisy little bazaar immediately went silent. This was the authority of a Gu master. There was no one who didn't believe he wouldn't do what he just said. As a Gu master, so long as their mood was bad, what was killing off 2 or 3 mortals considered? The crowd pushed and shoved each other, and soon lined up in a neat long row. In front of the queue, the green-clothed girl held a basket of steamed buns and distributed them. The whole little bazaar was absolutely silent. Countless gazes looked at the green-clothed girl with respect, worship and even love. Bai Ningbing was curious and asked the stall owner to the side, "Who is she?" "What, you don't even know of Lady Zhang Xianxia? You should be newcomers, right?" "Zhang Xianxia?" Fang Yuan asked, his brows tightly locked. "Speak up everything you know." The stall owner recalled how ruthlessly Fang Yuan had kicked the servant earlier. He didn't dare to conceal anything. "Lady Zhang is also one of the deputy leaders of our caravan. She doesn't have aptitude towards cultivation and is a mortal like us. However, she has a strong background in her clan, the Gu master beside her is her bodyguard. I have lived for so long, but truthfully, I have never seen such a kind-hearted person. Lady Zhang brings some food almost every evening for the starved servants. She comes even if the weather is bad. Sigh, heaven is unfair, they prevented such a person from cultivating." Bai Ningbing nodded her head and smiled, saying towards Fang Yuan, "Truly, all sorts of people exist in this world." Fang Yuan didn't respond. Bai Ningbing glanced at Fang Yuan in confusion, and saw something wrong with Fang Yuan's expression. The latter was gazing fixedly at the green-clothed girl, his brows almost furrowed into a knot. The green-clothed girl had silky jet black hair draping over her shoulders, accentuating her beauty. Her eyebrows were like smoke, her eyes as clear as the moon. Her skin was snow-white, and her lips were pink and tender. She had no makeup on her face, looking soft and gentle. The slight smile she gave from time to time when distributing the steamed buns, was pure and innocent. She was wearing green clothing and had a fresh and plain aura. She was elegant like an orchid, graceful like a lotus and gentle like water. In terms of looks, she was on the same level as Bai Ningbing, but she could be said to be once in 1,000 years beauty. If a woman has fine appearance, they can only be considered to be good-looking, just like common beverages. Only with disposition, can they be called beautiful, like well-aged liquor. No doubt, this green-clothed girl was an absolute beauty. However, no matter how beautiful you were, how moving your disposition was, they were all pointless in Fang Yuan's eyes. Fang Yuan was not looking at her appearance. No matter how beautiful and what disposition one had, if you cut open their skin and flesh, they were all skeletons. However, he was baffled as he thought of a certain figure. Isn't this girl Xianxia? Xianxia was one of the young masters of the Shang clan. Within a clan, the clan leader's sons and daughters were all called young masters. Only the heirs who are able to obtain the elder's approval could be called young clan leader. With her identity as the young master of the Shang clan, Xianxia was a girl with good fortune. Everyone knew the Shang clan members were greedy and treacherous, but this Xianxia was the only exception. She was soft and weak, didn't like fighting, and was very lenient. She was the worst businessman of the Shang clan. When she did business, she not only made frequent losses, but was also frequently cheated by others. She easily trusted others, and the crucial point was she didn't learn after being cheated and would continue to be cheated by others. As the young master of the Shang clan, she was once taken as a disgrace of the Shang clan and was someone no one thought highly of. However, considering that she possessed the bloodline of the Shang clan leader, she was not expelled from the clan. She didn't discriminate mortals but instead felt strongly sympathetic towards them, giving care and assistance. Several times, she had even bought off all the slaves in auction, and was severely reprimanded by the Shang clan leader. However, fate was truly wonderful. In the end, she became the head of the Shang clan. Chapter 236, Kindness Will Be Rewarded. But why is she here? And, why is she called Xianxia? In my memories, she was clearly a Gu master. Why are they saying she doesn't have cultivation aptitude and is a mortal? Fang Yuan was bewildered. Is she not Xianxia and is only similar in appearance? But this is too similar. No, wait a second. Fang Yuan's rummaged through his mind, and suddenly, he extracted a very old information from the depths of his memories. Xianxia had a rough life. She was an illegitimate child born of Shang clan leader when he had gone out to travel. She didn't have a father since young and had to endure being bullied. After her mother died, her life became more difficult. She was forced by her clansmen to follow the caravan and become a merchant. In the end, when she arrived at Shang clan city, the Shang clan leader sensed her bloodline. Shang clan leader felt both surprised and happy, admitting her as his daughter in front of the public. But he still felt he owed her a lot, thus he would bear with and cover up a lot of her mistakes. Upon thinking this, Fang Yuan's gaze brightened. So that's it, I understand now. Combining the situation before him with the broken clues in his memories, Fang Yuan arrived at the truth. Many years ago, when Shang clan leader was only a young master of the Shang clan, he left his seed in Zhang clan. It was Xianxia. Shang clan and Zhang clan were at odds with each other since ancient times. When Xianxia was born, her mother didn't dare to reveal about the Shang clan leader due to this. Thus, Xianxia was born as a disgraceful illegitimate child and took on her mother's surname. This was the reason why she was still being called as Xianxia. After her mother died, she was forced by the clansmen to be a merchant. And after she ended up arriving at Shang clan city, her bloodline was discovered. Her father had also become the Shang clan leader, and with such a high status, he acknowledged her in front of everybody, completely changing her fate. So to say, this caravan is her first journey as a merchant. Fang Yuan's heart began to thump loudly when he realized this. One should know, this Xianxia was a stock that was absolutely guaranteed to increase, she was the future Shang clan leader. No one would believe it if it was said now. Of course, the future was prone to changes. Even in the original track in his memories, there were drastic changes in the world, and even the powerful Shang clan was already ruined by the time she became the clan leader. To Fang Yuan, waiting till she became Shang clan leader was a very long investment without any returns. Her value didn't lie in the time she became the clan leader, but rather when she was acknowledged by the Shang clan leader and became one of the Shang clan's young masters. As a young master, she would definitely be given responsibility over a part of the business. This was the tradition of the Shang clan to nurture the clan's successors. It was exactly this point which Fang Yuan desired. He needed a way to dispose of the goods, a stable, favorable and safe channel. In his important plans after his rebirth, this was absolutely necessary. In the future, he would definitely open up many secret inheritances. There would be many things which he does not need, and by selling them he would be revealing their enormous worth. For instance, those bone spear gu and spiral bone spear gu in Bai Ning Bing's aperture currently. Fang Yuan and Bai Ning Bing just needed one of them, at most another one for backup. If they didn't sell them, these gu would just die in their hands and they would even waste a lot of milk in feeding them. Previously, Fang Yuan had intended to temporarily use Jia Jinsheng as a channel to dispose goods, then it would be best if he could connect to Jia Fu to nurture this channel. The result, Destiny liked to play with people, because of being subjected to the secret of Flower Wine Monk's inheritance, he had no choice but to kill Jia Jinsheng. This is a gift heaven has sent to me. Fang Yuan heaved a deep sigh as his gaze towards the distant Xianxia turned bright as fire. Shang clan had deep foundations, at least before that violent storm which engulfed the southern border. It was one of the overlords of the southern border. When stolen goods were sold to them, the victims wouldn't dare to come find trouble. However, because their influence was too strong, Fang Yuan is also worried about possible backstabbing. They belonged to righteous path on the surface, but the core of the Shang clan members were all black. This was actually quite normal. However, Xianxia was the exception. She had been tested by many changes and upheaval in the history of her 100 years. Her kindness, gentleness, benevolence and honesty were praised far and wide in Fang Yuan's previous life, her reputation resounding all over the southern border. The most important thing was that she didn't have any foundation. Different from other young masters, she would walk a solitary path after she arrived at Shang Clan City. In future, she would make many mistakes, but it wasn't because she was not intelligent, but rather because of the other young masters' secret plotting to suppress their competitor. Fang Yuan needed her as a channel, and she also similarly needed the external help, Fang Yuan, if she wanted to live a better life in the future. Most importantly, she was easy to manipulate and influence. Her youth and kind nature were both weaknesses Fang Yuan could exploit. Ha ha ha. Bai Ningbing suddenly laughed from the side. You took a fancy to her, right? What? Fang Yuan's thoughts paused. Don't pretend, we are both men, I can understand just from looking at your gaze. Anyway, this little girl is quite pleasing to the eyes, but it will be very difficult for you to obtain her. Unless I help you and find an opportunity to secretly kidnap her. As an exchange, give the Yanggu to me first. Bai Ningbing tried to entice Fang Yuan. However, Fang Yuan's next sentence made her seethe in anger. You are a man. You. Things were a bit troublesome now. First of all, Fang Yuan needed to approach Xianxia, then obtain her trust. However, he didn't have a lot of time, he must settle everything before she reaches Shang Clan City. Bai Ningbing's idea of capturing her was too dumb and risky, it would just cause the situation to be even more messed up. Fang Yuan was very clear the reason why Xianxia could be repeatedly cheated. It was not that she was stupid, but rather she was too kind. In his previous life, there was a demonic path figure called Night Gentleman. He was an expert thief and was as cunning as a fox. He had swindled Xianxia many times using the same excuse. One day, he couldn't endure it anymore and asked, "I always tell you this, aren't you worried I am swindling you?" At that time, Xianxia had replied, "You say you are unable to make ends meet, and if you aren't able to immediately borrow some primeval stones, your family will starve to death. I know that you are most likely deceiving me, but every time you say this, I can't bear to think that what if you were saying the truth this time? And if I didn't lend you the money, then several lives might be lost. Although, that is not likely to happen, I don't want to bet on it." When the Night Lord heard Xianxia's reply, he couldn't stop his tears from flowing. He was so moved by her that he fell on his knees on the spot. After this event, he changed from demonic to righteous, and followed Xianxia with unwavering loyalty, achieving many war exploits. The sun was slowly swallowed by the mountain ranges in the west and the night gradually descended. The long queue of people also decreased, till all the servants received food and dispersed. "Alright, that's it for today. I will come again tomorrow." She hadn't even finished speaking when a figure suddenly jumped in front of her. What kind of face was this? Eyebrows all burnt off, only a bit of hair remained and one ear less. Who was it if not Fang Yuan? Xianxia was startled, the maids behind her even screamed in fright. "What the hell are you doing?" That tall and sturdy old Gu master immediately shouted. "Lady Zhang, please buy my goods." Fang Yuan didn't care about this old Gu master, and screamed towards Xianxia. Bai Ningbing silently stood far away, enjoying Fang Yuan's performance. "I have one steamed bun remaining, take it, okay?" Xianxia revealed a gentle smile. She didn't feel any revulsion towards Fang Yuan, only sympathy. She tried to think of how much pain he must have experienced for such severe wounds. Sigh, such a pitiful person. Fang Yuan but threw the steamed bun on the ground. "I don't need this, I want to sell my goods. I sold my old house and bought this cart of purple maple leaves. But I haven't been able to sell it, the leaves will soon wither up, what meaning will my life have then? Sob sob, I don't want to live if I can't sell it. I should just smash my head and die." He started to weep while speaking. He stamped his feet and howled, his expression carried a hint of madness and was extremely moving. Bai Ningbing was dumbstruck. This acting skill, I really have no hope of catching up. If she didn't know about Fang Yuan, even she might have been deceived by Fang Yuan. She then observed the expressions and gazes of the crowd, stunned, disdainful, sympathy, indifference, but there were no suspicions. Who is this man? Charging over so suddenly, scared me to death. Such greed, he actually wants Lady Zhang to buy his goods. Serves him right. Does he think trading is so easy? Sigh, the buyers must have demanded a lower price. When I think of those times I encountered. There were all kinds of discussions going on in the crowd. "TSK, you lunatic, you actually dared to frighten our young lady, screw off this instant." That old Gu master's tongue seemed to give off lightning sparks as he took a step forward and protected Xianxia behind him. "Lady Zhang, I don't want to live if you don't buy my goods. Lady Zhang, you are a good person, please buy this cart of purple maple leaves and save me." Fang Yuan wailed without ceasing. Xianxia's heart softened. "Sigh, don't cry. I will buy them, but life is the most valuable thing in our life, live properly from now and don't give up on life so easily. Uncle Zhangzhu, give him 3 primeval stones." Mississippi. The old Gu master's brows furrowed. Huh, it worked. Maybe I should do this too. A commotion erupted among the stall owners. Thank you, lady, thank you. Lady Zhang, you are my, Hey Tu's, savior. Fong Yuan was greatly ecstatic and there were signs of tears on his face as he repeatedly bowed. The old Gu master's eyelids twitched, he looked at the cart behind Fong Yuan. This cart of purple maple leaves is worth 2 primeval stones at most. 3 is too much. Uncle Zhangzhu. Xianxia said with a soft voice. The old Gu master heaved a deep sigh. Miss, it isn't that I am unwilling to part with 3 primeval stones. But this amount is too big for a mere servant like him. It is bound to attract those who will eye the money and scheme against him. Miss, for his own safety, we should just give him 2 primeval stones. Moreover, all the peddlers might come over tomorrow if you give it to him like this. Uncle Zhangzhu is correct, then please give him 2 primeval stones. Xianxia pondered for a while and readily agreed. Fong Yuan accepted the 2 primeval stones with trembling hands. He looked deeply at Xianxia. Miss Zhang, you are a great person, you will definitely be rewarded. Chapter 237, Thrashing. Many stall owners looked at Fong Yuan in envy. Fong Yuan put the 2 primeval stones he received into his pocket, and abandoning the handcart, he directly left the small bazaar with Bai Ningbing. The way I see it, we should just directly capture her. Don't forget our current identities if you want to approach her. Bai Ningbing murmured quietly. Fong and Bai were currently laborers under Chen clan. They had relied on this identity to mix in with the caravan, but now this was undoubtedly the obstacle for Fong Yuan in approaching Xianxia. However, Fong Yuan had already planned for it. He looked at Bai Ningbing and smiled. You are right. So I will go thrash people now. Bai Ningbing was stumped. Thrash? The clear night sky was studded with the bright stars. In a wide tent, several servants were sitting in a circle around a coal stove which had a pot on it. The upper part of the tent was opened, allowing the smoke from the burning coals to fly out. There was meat in the pot and the servants were all staring fixedly at it. Faint aroma of cooked meat began to float in the air and one could hear the occasional gulps of saliva. Brother Chang, I have made some inquiries on the details of the 2 newcomers. Skinny Monkey said. Oh, speak. The muscular servant called Brother Chang raised his eyebrows. These 2 were introduced by the village head of the hamlet near the Ziyu mountain. Skinny Monkey answered. That solves it. I remember that village head was originally immortal, the vice leader wanted a strategic point and casually awakened him. So they had this background. The group seemed to have come upon a realization. Although they have a Gu master behind them, so what? Brother Chang's sister is our Lord Chen Xian's concubine. Someone shouted. These 2 newcomers are too bold. If they aren't taught a lesson, wouldn't they just climb over our head in the future? Keep quiet, we will listen to Brother Chang. Someone else shouted. The tent quieted down as everyone looked towards Brother Chang. Brother Chang appeared to be hesitating. Fong and Bai had a Gu master behind them. Even if this Gu master was not a Chen clan member, even if this Gu master was an old geezer with half a foot in the coffin, he was in the end still a Gu master. Have you found out the relation these 2 has with that old village head? Skinny Monkey immediately revealed an awkward expression. This, Brother Chang, you also know that with our identities, being able to investigate even this is already not an easy thing. Brother Chang hesitated. Boss, these 2 newcomers are too unreasonable, look at their attitudes towards the Skinny Monkey today. They are clearly looking down at us. They must be taught a lesson. Right. That old village head was originally a mortal like us, and with some bullshit luck became a Gu master. What can we even take him as? Wasn't he able to become a Gu master only because our Veed leader wanted to use him? He is no more than a high-ranked servant. Moreover, the caravan merchants always face dangers. Even if these two died, that village head wouldn't dare to settle it with our Qin clan. The noisy discussions made Brother Chang's frowns even deeper. The skinny monkey observed the situation for a long while. He had wanted to find trouble for Fong and Bai, but was instead oppressed by Fong Yuan this morning, causing him to feel full of hatred towards the latter. However, he knew that he had no background and he could only rely on Brother Chang for revenge. When he felt the time was right, he spoke, "For the life of me, I can't believe what I heard earlier. A cart of purple maple leaves was actually sold for 2 primeval stones in the little bazaar." Brother Chang's eyes immediately brightened. What? 2 primeval stones? How can it be possible? The prices weren't lowered. Such luck. Which fool bought it? Skinny Monkey sneered as he spoke with disdain and envy. Who else is there? It is that young lady from Zhang clan, a mortal, but look at her luck, living a good life. Damn, I recall how I had smuggled in some goods and how cheap I had to sell them. Why didn't I have these 2 guys' luck? Brother Chang's eyes became bloodshot. He indignantly said, "We will put them in order tomorrow. Newcomers must show respect to their seniors. If they don't understand the rules, then we will just have to properly teach them." Yes, Brother Chang. We will do whatever Brother Chang says. Brother Chang is wise. Skinny Monkey flattered, then took out the stew with a soup ladle. The meat stew is done. Brother Chang, please taste it. The aroma of the meat assailed the nostrils, the Adam apples of many servants moved as they swallowed their saliva. Brother Chang licked his lips and took the soup ladle. He blew at it before bringing it closer to his mouth. Suddenly, the entrance curtain of the tent was lifted open. Fong Yuan walked inside. "It's you." The crowd of servants were stunned, the target of their long schemings had unexpectedly appeared directly in front of them. This made them feel at a loss and dismayed. Skinny Monkey jumped to his feet and said with a sinister smile, "Newbie, now you know fear. It is already too late for a polo." He hadn't finished saying his sentence when Fong Yuan indifferently raised his foot. Bam! Skinny Monkey was directly kicked flying, his back smashing against the coal stove. The cooked meat stew splashed all over his body and burned him, causing him to scream tragically. The meat stew. All spilled. The meat we bought with our money pooled together. It is so hard to even taste it once, this bastard. Bastard, courting death. Instantly, all the servants stood up with resentment and roared as they charged at Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan threw the 2 primeval stones he was holding in his hand at them. Ouch! 2 persons were hit by the primeval stones, one covered his eyes and another covered his stomach, both screaming in pain. Despicable, actually using concealed weapons. Wait a second, this is primeval stones. The crowd that was charging over immediately slowed down when they heard this. 2 primeval stones lying on the ground drew the servants' gazes. Skinny Monkey's tragic scream also came to an abrupt stop as he stared fixedly at the primeval stones. Birds die for food, humans die for wealth. Has this guy gone mad? Actually throwing primeval stones at people? Humph, he must have already been scared. These are primeval stones, I might not even earn one after 2 months of working. The group of servants' thoughts rumbled like the raging tide. Some started looking at Fong Yuan with a bit of hope, as if asking, "Do you have more primeval stones? come smash them at me. You dare to smash my eye, you are looking to die. The servant covering the eyes, shouted as he let go of his hand. His right eye was already swollen and purplish, he couldn't even open it. However, that didn't hinder him from grabbing the primeval stone. The rest of the servants quivered and they immediately looked at the other primeval stone on the ground. Bam! Every one of them pounced at that primeval stone, throwing everything about Fang Yuan to the back of their heads. Skinny Monkey gritted his teeth in pain as he grabbed towards the primeval stone, quicker than others. Mine, this is mine, he smashed it at me. The other servant who had been hit roared furiously. Screw off, monkey, weren't you injured? Why are you so fast? Someone shouted with his saliva flying all over. Shut your trap. Who tripped me just now? Stand up. Brother Chang's face was covered with dirt, he was furious. Suddenly, a hand appeared and pulled him. Who had such guts? Surprised and angry, he turned his head to look, coming face to face with none other than Fang Yuan's ugly face. He shouted, "How dare you grab me? Let go of your dog paw." Bam! Fang Yuan waved his fist and punched his face. Brother Chang's nose bone instantly broke and blood started flowing madly. He felt intense dizziness and all he saw were stars spinning around. Fang Yuan let go of his hand and Brother Chang fell softly to the ground. My God! He punched Brother Chang. Brother Chang is injured, let's attack this bastard together. The servants were stumped for a while before coming back to their senses, immediately brandishing their fists as they pounced at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan indifferently swept his fist horizontally, sending the nearest servant flying to the side. The servant's teeth were smashed. Immediately following, another servant closed at him. Fang Yuan aimed at his crotch and lightly kicked. Oh you! This servant covered his crotch, his two eyes rolled over and immediately fainted. All the servants were down on the ground with few punches and kicks from Fang Yuan, the only one remaining was Skinny Monkey who was hiding in the corner. As Fang Yuan gazed at him, Skinny Monkey shivered and immediately fell onto the ground. I surrender, I surrender. Great hero, please be magnanimous. He begged loudly, kowtowing continuously. His head smashed on the ground and continued to produce muffled sounds. However, there was no sound of Fang Yuan's movement. Skinny Monkey raised his head with fear, but Fang Yuan had already left. The servants inside the tent were collapsed on the ground, some had fainted and some were moaning in pain. Fang Yuan walked in between the tents. The noise from earlier would have attracted many people. This was what Fang Yuan wanted. Bai Ningbing walked over from within a dark corner. It is just the first day and we have already beaten up working servants. This won't be good. She grinned, taking joy in this disaster. However, she was even more curious of why Fang Yuan did this. Fang Yuan didn't reply, walking towards the depths of this temporary camp. Soon, he arrived at his destination, a horse carriage. He had already inquired and knew this was where the old steward of the Chen clan slept. He didn't immediately go and knock on the carriage, but went into a dark area with no one in the vicinity. He took out the dagger he carried with him and began to slash himself. In the quiet surroundings, a soft sound of dagger cutting open a flesh could be heard. Bai Ningbing's brows raised when she heard it. She, once again, realized how ruthless and cruel Fang Yuan was. He didn't make even a sound when he cut himself with the dagger, and from the sound of it, he seemed to be quite skilled at it. It was as if he was not cutting himself, but some wood. Thud thud thud. The carriage door was knocked continuously. The narrow carriage was filled with goods, along with a small bed. Fortunately, the old steward was short, and when he curled up on the small bed, it didn't appear to be congested. Thud, thud, thud. The door was knocked again. The old steward, who had been sleeping soundly, frowned as he got up from the bed. Bang, bang, bang. The knocks were getting stronger. The old steward opened his bloodshot eyes. Who is it? It is me, old steward. A sound came in from outside the door. This voice was unfamiliar, but it also seemed to be a little familiar. The old steward's brows furrowed tighter, and after a long while, he recalled this voice belonged to the newcomer that joined just this morning. A newcomer actually doesn't understand the rules. What the hell are you doing disturbing someone's sleep in the middle of the night? Chapter 238, Lady, Save Me. The old steward's anger surged to the skies. He decided to give Fang Yuan an unforgettable lesson. Bang, he opened the door. However, the scene that appeared in front of him was Fang Yuan's injuries and blood stains. The old steward got quite a shock. Forgetting his rage, he asked, "You, what happened? Has a beast pack raided us?" "No, old steward. It was those thieves that injured me, and snatched my primeval stones. Old steward, you need to seek justice for me." Fang Yuan wiped away his tears and shouted. "Ow, it hurts. Has that lunatic gone away? Damn it, that lunatic is too strong." The scene inside the tent was of a complete mess. The aroma of the meat stew was still there, but it could no longer be salvaged, and the pot was completely smashed. The group of servants were slowly recovering their senses. They either had bloody noses and swollen faces, or they were drawing in gasps of cold air. Son of a mere newbie dares to beat us. This has gone too far. We have not even gone to find trouble with him, yet he dared to find trouble with us first. I cannot contain this anger. We cannot let this be. We must get back at him. How? Can you even beat him? Why would we beat him? We will just tell on him and let the old steward handle him. This newbie is too tyrannical. How can we still work together later? That's right. Pass those 2 primeval stones he threw to me. This will be the evidence. Brother Chang suddenly said. The tent immediately quietened down. Everyone knew this was just an excuse used by Brother Chang. The servants who hadn't been able to snatch the primeval stones looked at this with joy, looking at the skinny monkey in another servant. The 2 of them seemed to be mumbling, but didn't speak. Clearly, they didn't want to hand it over. Brother Chang was not stupid at all, as he said tactfully, "We are all injured. These 2 primeval stones are not only evidence, they are also our medical fees." These words resounded with the servants who wanted to have a share, as they spoke one after another. Brother Chang is right. Monkey, hand the primeval stone to Brother Chang. Or are you thinking of becoming the boss? Brother Chang has a deep background, only he can avenge us. Brother Chang, we believe you. Under everyone's pressure, Skinny Monkey and the other servant could only purse their lips and unwillingly hand over their primeval stone to Brother Chang. As Brother Chang received and felt the smooth, glossy primeval stones, he felt his nose didn't hurt so much anymore. However, right at this moment, the entrance curtain was suddenly lifted. Everyone was shocked, thinking Fang Yuan had come again. But the one that was staring at the scene was the old steward. "Old steward, what are you doing here?" "Old steward, we were just going to look for you." The servants were both surprised and joyous. The old steward's expression, however, was not good, especially when he saw those 2 primeval stones on Brother Chang's hand. His looks turned even more gloomy. He reached in front of Brother Chang in few steps, then snatched the primeval stones and gave several tight slaps to Brother Chang. Brother Chang was stupefied. The rest of the servants were also stupefied. After several moments, the group finally reacted. "Old steward, why are you so angry?" "Old steward, what are you doing?" The old man simply walked away and lifted open the curtains. "Chang, skinny monkey, you group of bastards, come out." Then he directly walked out of the tent. Brother Chang covered his face, but he didn't dare to oppose the old steward. He restrained his anger and walked out of the tent in bewilderment. The rest of the servants also followed him out of the tent. When they saw Fang Yuan standing to the side, his whole body was injured and his cloth was stained with blood. "Old steward, they are the ones who stole my primeval stones." Fang Yuan pointed at them and shouted with righteous indignation. "What the?" The servants only then reacted. "Brat, you dare slander us? Asshole, I will peel off your skin." The group of servants were furious and shouted one after another. Slap. A clear slap instantly suppressed the scene. The servant who was shouting the most, was covering his face, and involuntarily took a step back from the slap. The old steward looked at him darkly. Why wouldn't he complain? Hee, you guys are getting more and more out of control, you even dare to snatch the primeval stones of your workmate. The old steward was well aware of the bullying on newcomers, but he was glad to see that happen. This was a necessary process. On one hand, it would suppress the arrogance of the newcomers, making his supervision work easier. On another hand, it could also promote the harmony between the old comers and the newcomers. However, the bullying this time went too far. They directly snatched the primeval stones. What difference was there between them and the bandits? "Old steward, it isn't what you are thinking," someone complained. Slap. Another clear slap. The old steward's tone turned cold. "Did I tell you to speak?" "Old steward, we must speak up." "Yes, we are being accused." Many servants shouted, feeling wronged. "We are the victims here." The old steward seethed in anger as he shouted fiercely, "You guys took his primeval stones and you actually dare to say you are being accused. These two primeval stones, are they his or not? Speak. Speak honestly." Yes. "It is, but..." Slap slap. Two slaps, the two servants shut their mouths. The old steward pointed at them and angrily rebuked, "Okay, let's forget about snatching the primeval stones, you actually dared to use knives. You sure have guts. Speak up, who used the knife?" When the servants were crippled and couldn't work anymore, their recuperation and treatment would be expenses. If such matters were delayed, the target of the Gu master's blame would be the old steward. Using knife? We didn't. Old steward, we are all experienced, who doesn't know about this? A load of bullshit. Do you think I am blind? If you didn't use knives, then where did his injuries come from? Are you telling me he cut himself? The old steward continued to angrily shout. Bai Ningbing thought inwardly, while looking at this scene from a dark corner not far away, "Old steward, you are quite smart, you actually guessed it." Slap. 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 The old steward's anger had reached an extreme as he slapped the servants one after another. Every servant received few slaps, none dared to speak up in fear of the old steward's authority. They could only clench their fists in anger. The veins in their forehead out and cracking noises were emitted from their teeth grinding. They were all filled with stuffed feeling with nowhere to vent it on. "Get back to the tent, I will settle the accounts with you tomorrow." The old steward's hands were already numb from the slapping. As he was old, He was having trouble breathing, but his anger had also mostly dissipated. The servants didn't dare to go against this order, but before leaving all of them angrily looked at Fang Yuan, engraving his image in the depths of their hearts. The old steward walked towards Fang Yuan and gave him the primeval stones, saying with an annoyed tone, "You got your primeval stones back, don't lose them again. I won't give a damn if you lose them again." Fang Yuan was sniffing and weeping. He seemed to be both moved and afraid. "Old steward, please safeguard these 2 primeval stones for me. I am afraid they will be snatched." Old steward was speechless for a while, before feeling a rush of excitement. Merchants will always be in danger. Maybe one day Fang Yuan would be swallowed by the wild beasts. Wouldn't these 2 primeval stones be his then? "All right, I will take it upon myself to safeguard them for you," the old steward said. "Thank you, old steward, you truly are a good person." Fang Yuan repeatedly bowed and kept on expressing his thanks. All right, I am tired, you should go rest too." The old steward waved his hand and impatiently walked away. As for where Fang Yuan slept, it wasn't his concern. "This He too is truly stupid," the old steward sneered inwardly. After everyone left, Fang Yuan's expression turned back to normal. "The wounds on your body are still bleeding, aren't you going to treat them?" Bai Ning Bing came over. "I still have use for them, let's go." Fang Yuan smiled. Inside a tent, oil lamps were lit. Xianxia was holding a book, when suddenly her brows slightly furrowed. "Xiao Dai, did you hear that? It seemed like someone is crying for help." The servant girl called Xiao Dai was dozing off with her head slowly moving up and down. It wouldn't be okay if she slept before the young lady. Right now, she was startled awake. She leaned her ears to listen and immediately said, "Wah, someone is crying for help. Who is crying so late in the night? Why is it you again?" Xianxia's bodyguard Gu Master Zhang walked out and saw Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was slumped on the ground, snot and tears falling down. "Get lost. I will kill you if you don't get lost right this moment." Zhang Zhu shouted. He didn't have good impression of Fang Yuan. "Uncle Zhang Zhu." At this time, Xianxia and the servant girl walked out. "How come it is you again, are you haunting us?" The servant girl's eyes were wide open when she saw Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan ignored them and only looked at Xianxia. "Zhang clan lady, my life has been harmed by you and only you can save me." "Tsk, you lunatic, what nonsense are you saying?" Zhang Zhu angrily shouted. "Our young lady is very kind-hearted, how could she harm you? Lady, let's go, don't pay attention to this lunatic." The servant girl chided Fang Yuan. Xianxia's nature was such that she could never see others suffering and helplessness. Fang Yuan's blood-soaked and wounded body had already won her sympathy. Now, with his words, if Xianxia didn't get involved, she would definitely not be able to have a good sleep. "You say you were harmed by me? What do you mean?" "Uncle Zhang Zhu, I have to trouble you to heal him first," Xianxia said. Although Zhang Zhu was not willing, he could only do as she said. He pushed his hands, a white ball of light entered Fang Yuan's body, the bleeding immediately stopped and the wounds were gradually closing up. Fang Yuan said, "It was those 2 primeval stones, the others were envious of it and snatched my primeval stones. I can't fight them and could only ask the old steward to uphold justice. They have returned the primeval stones, but threaten that they will teach me a lesson and make my life worse than death." So, it was like that. Xianxia sighed when she heard this. "You reap what you sow, lady, we shouldn't get involved with him. He clearly brought this upon himself, selling at such a high price, did he think everything would be fine?" Xiao Dai rolled her eyes, showing her displeasure at Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan continued, I have discussed it with my companion, we can only rely on Lady Zhang. Otherwise, we will be killed by them, 2 lives will be lost. It won't go as far as killing. Xianxia comforted Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan interrupted her, Lady, you don't know how dark it is here. They will plot against me during the beasts' attacks. Maybe one day, I will be eaten by the wild beasts, but actually it was manipulated by them behind the scenes. Lady, I beg you to take us in your shelter, please save us. Xianxia hesitated, but she finally couldn't bring herself to reject him. All right, I will temporarily take you guys in. Chapter 239, Feiho Mountain. Miss, you can't. Zhang Zhu immediately said. Miss, our Zhang clan's group here has the least power in the whole caravan. If we take him in, no doubt we will offend another force. It's not worth doing it for just 2 insignificant servants. Miss, even if not for yourself, think about our Zhang clan's group here, or just think of those with you. Zhang Zhu persuaded. This. Xianxia was placed in a dilemma and couldn't make a decision. What difficulty is there? Lady Zhang, I am only a hired hand of Qin family and am not their servant. Lady, if you are still feeling troubled, I have a way to solve it. You can tell the Qin clansmen that I and my companion offended you, and you want to punish us so you are imprisoning us. Qin clan definitely won't offend you for us 2 mortals. Fong Yuan said. That is a good idea. Xianxia's gaze brightened. Mississippi. Zhang Zhu gave a helpless sigh, knowing he couldn't persuade her anymore. Fong Yuan immediately crawled up with a stick and bowed at Xianxia, Miss Zhang, you are a good person. I will definitely repay you in the future. Xianxia shook her head, I don't need you to repay me. I will definitely help those who need my help to the best of my ability. Sleep in my camp tonight. Xiao Dai, arrange a tent for them. Yes, Missy. Xiao Dai answered, unwillingly. Follow me. Don't blame me if you get lost. Xiao Dai didn't show Fong Yuan any hospitality, but led the way anyway. Zhang Zhu's brows furrowed deeper as he looked at Fong and Bai's leaving figures. He didn't like these 2 from the depths of his heart, and at the same time he had to think of Xianxia's safety as her bodyguard. He decided to personally handle this matter. This was a small tent with not much space inside. However, Fong and Bai didn't care. They had treated even the beast-trapping trees as tents, much less this environment which was much better. The 2 laid down in the dark tent. Fong Yuan clasped his hands with Bai Ningbing's, everything will be okay, Bai Yun. Bai Ningbing rolled her eyes, she knew Fong Yuan's true intention. In the darkness, she transferred a portion of her snow-silver primeval essence to Fong Yuan through her palm. Sleep early, luckily we met such a good person like Lady Zhang. Fong Yuan closed his eyes the moment he finished saying this, and began cultivating secretly. He was already rank 2 now, his primeval seat filled with red steel primeval essence. Although he could already use 4 flavors liquor worm, Bai Ningbing's snow-silver primeval essence was no doubt much better. To Fong Yuan, 4 flavors liquor worm had already lost its use with Bai Ningbing here. Snow-silver primeval essence cleaned and refined the aperture, rapidly increasing Fong Yuan's accumulation. He didn't need to worry about his aura leaking out with the breath-concealing goo. His disguise wasn't likely to be broken unless he used the goo worms outside of his body. At present, breath-concealing goo had yet to truly walk onto the world stage. In his previous life, only after 150 years, it was made popular by the hunting king Sun Gone. Within 50 years after that, in that great war that affected the whole southern border, breath-concealing goo was widely used and took the limelight. In other words, according to Fang Yuan's previous life, mankind would be conscious of guarding against the breath-concealing Gu only after 150 years. And after 200 years, they would have methods and experience to respond against the breath-concealing Gu. Breath-concealing Gu was a rank 3 Gu. This caravan didn't have a rank 4 Gu master, and although there were many Gu masters, why would they especially pay attention to He Tu and Bai Yun, two ordinary people? Fang Yuan immediately activated Crocodile Strength Gu after the portion of Snow Silver Primeval Essence was used up. Bits of new strength was permanently added to his body. His skeleton was no longer white, but was like firm black iron. It was like a firm cornerstone, stably supporting the continuous increase in strength. The night passed quietly. The next day, at the crack of dawn when the sun had just risen, the whole camp was awake. After a period of hustling and bustling, the caravan resumed its journey. Xianxia didn't go directly to Qin clan, but rather made secret inquiries through his subordinates first. There was indeed a fight yesterday night, and many had witnessed it. As for Brother Chang and his group, they had covered up the fact that Fang Yuan had beat them up. If it were to be known that so many of them couldn't beat one Fang Yuan, they would lose all their face. How would they be able to go around then? In fact, they had gone through everything yesterday and strung up false statements which they all agreed to, saying they bullied the newcomer and Fang Yuan offered them primeval stones, but later he was indignant and looked for the old steward. After confirming the fight really happened, Xianxia set out and found Qin clan's head in the caravan. This vice leader couldn't help but ponder when he heard his two mortal subordinates offended Xianxia and were detained. Although he wouldn't offend Zhang clan because of two mortals, if he just readily compromised, Qin clan's prestige could fall. Moreover, he had some close people among the servants. Thereupon, he inquired which two servants they were. Qin clan's vice leader was slightly surprised when he heard Xianxia's answer. He had some impressions of these two, he had let them enter because of the old village head's request. But to think, they had screwed up on their first day. According to him, Fang and Bai should be the old village head's relatives, but so what? The old village head was someone he enlightened and was someone under his control. Giving up these two would not mean anything to him. Moreover, they were the ones who had committed crimes, bringing troubles upon Qin clan. Even death would not be sufficient punishment. As he thought of this, the vice leader had already decided to give up these two to resolve the conflict with Zhang clan. However, he put on a difficult expression, "Brother Zhang, I won't conceal from you, our Qin clan might not have enough manpower if you take those two. We can't make our Gu masters work and move the goods, right? How about this, I will call my steward over. He understands the situation, if there really is a scarcity in manpower, we might not be able to hand those two to you at the moment. We will temporarily keep them here and hand them to your Zhang clan to deal with after we get new workers in the next village." "That works." Xianxia nodded his head. Vice leader couldn't help but reveal a smile. Like this, there wouldn't be any gossips and rumors saying Qin clan was afraid of Zhang clan. The old steward was somewhat nervous when he was called over. Did I make some mistake? However, when he was clear of the situation, he suddenly felt alive. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. These two are really out of luck, falling into Zhang clan's hands. Die, both of you die, then those two primeval stones would be mine. Thinking of this, the old steward immediately slapped his chest and guaranteed that there were no issues with the manpower. Even if there were to be some issues, he was determined to stake out his weary aged body to personally move goods, for those two primeval stones. Now, the dust had already settled regarding this matter. Xianxia bade his farewell, his heart, however, felt stuffed. In the coming dozen or so days, Fang and Bai worked during the day and cultivated during night. The caravan had already left Ziyu Mountain far behind and was now in Fei Ho Mountain region. Fang Yuan knew the farther they were from Ziyu Mountain, more concealed his identity would be and thus, more safety. Through these few days of cultivating, he had gained half a crocodile's strength. Unfortunately, a lot of Bone Spear Gu had starved to death. The amount of milk spring on him was less than sufficient, he could only give up some to feed the remaining Gu worms. Fang Yuan felt heartache due to this. Although he wouldn't use these Gu, they could have been sold. He planned to purchase a set of Gu worms in the Shang clan city. This required a great amount of primeval stones. He could use the Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus to produce dozens of primeval stones daily, but he couldn't use it in the caravan so as to prevent his identity from being revealed. Hence, he needed to get Xianxia in his grasp even more. She would become one of the young masters once they reached Shang clan. This would make Fang Yuan's trip in Shang clan city extremely convenient. Of course, the premise was that he not only needed to get close to Xianxia, but also gain her trust. The forest in the mountain was dark and mysterious with fog lingering around the air. The caravan slowly moved through the narrow mountain passage, and as they traveled further, the fog became denser, the range of their sights shrunk till they could only see within 10 steps. Fei Ho Mountain was covered with fog. Fang and Bai would need to go through great troubles if they had traveled by themselves. However, they were in a caravan now, and there naturally were investigative Gu masters. Suddenly, there was some sort of clamor in front of them. The caravan stopped. What's happening? There is trouble. Monkey groups are blocking our path. In moments, most of the people in the caravan began discussing, but none of them were surprised. Fei Ho Mountain was ruled by monkeys. There were too many monkeys to count. Caravans passing through this place would be blocked by the monkey groups and robbed. Anyone who had some experience and knowledge would not feel surprised at this. Monkeys of the Fei Ho Mountain. Hee, I have read about them in the books, to think I could personally see them today. Bai Ningbing softly said with a hint of excitement. Initially, when the caravans had first passed through Fei Ho Mountain, they had a huge fight with the monkey groups. They killed waves after waves of monkeys, but the monkey groups appeared again and again. Finally, the caravans were either annihilated or had to retreat in defeat. Fei Ho Mountain was once known as a forbidden and unpassable land for merchants. If it were other mountain ranges, the different wild beasts kept each other in check, and there would be a gap to pass through. However, there were only bandit monkeys in Fei Ho Mountain. They lived together, and although there were fights between monkey groups, all the bandit monkeys would unite if they came across an external enemy. Such strength was not something a caravan could rival. Even a large-scale clan might not be able to purge all these monkey groups. This was until the Sky Crown Marquis appeared. This was a rank 5 Gu master of the righteous path. He traveled deep into Fei Ho Mountain until he reached the peak, and using a monkey language Gu, he came to an agreement with the monkey emperor. Everything changed thereafter. A trade route opened through Fei Ho Mountain for the first time. Now, this trade route was one of the 3 most important trade routes of southern border, connecting east and west. Its importance was self-evident. These damn monkeys appeared again. They are blocking up our path. You all know the rules. I will tell you bluntly, anyone who breaks the rules and implicates us, my Jia clan will not let them off. The caravan leader shouted, coldly. Of course. Brother Jia Long is right, everything should be done according to the rules. Anyone that wants to take advantage will be driven out of the caravan. Other vice leaders went along with Jia Long. Chapter 240, Arm Wrestling. Bandit monkeys were very strong and were as big as an elephant. Mature bandit monkey could reach 10 meters of height and had bulging muscles all over their body. Their arms were over 2 times thicker than their legs and their tails were like iron rods, capable of pulverizing rocks. The fur of bandit monkeys were golden with black tiger stripes covering their body. What was peculiar was the fur from their waist grew out naturally to cover the crotch and the butt area, just like a leather skirt. Howl! The monkey king of this bandit monkey group suddenly opened its large mouth and gave a loud howl. Its howl were as forceful as lions and tigers. Hoo! The monkey king's howl was answered by the other monkeys. The howls created sound waves which engulfed the surroundings, scattering the winds and clouds along with the dense white fog. Within seconds, everyone's sights broadened and only then did they realize both sides of the passageway were filled with bandit monkeys. Over 1,000 bandit monkeys had surrounded the caravan. They were enormous, the same size as the trees. Some young trees could only reach up to their waists. In front of the caravan was the Monkey King who had an even larger physique, and was boldly sitting on a stone bench. A gray stone wine jar that was as big as a water tank, was lying on its side, giving off a dense fragrance of alcohol. The Monkey King stopped after howling once, but the other bandit monkeys were still howling without stop. This instead enhanced the Monkey King's majesty. Its eyes were sharp and bright, its gaze tranquil as it sat there without moving. In contrast, those ordinary bandit monkeys were getting restless as they stared at the caravan's goods, itching to have a go. Wild beasts like monkey, fox and wolves possessed intelligence. This bandit monkey king's intelligence might only be equal to 3-year-old child and wasn't at the level of cunning lightning wolf, but it was enough for it to communicate. The leader of the caravan, Jia Long, narrowed his eyes at the Monkey King and suddenly said, "Jia Yong, go." "Yes, chief." Jia Yong stood up. He was tall and fat, especially with his bulging stomach, but he was actually rather robust. He was defensive Gu master and his lifebound Gu was water armor Gu. He was a rank 2 Gu master and was specialized in fighting in water. Once, when he was swimming in a river, he luckily encountered a boat-sized tortoise and killed it, obtaining a tortoise-strength Gu from its body. After he used it, he was able to permanently gain the strength of a tortoise. The monkey groups howled even more fiercely when they saw Jia Yong coming closer, their voices shaking the whole forest. Jia Yong had a solemn expression as he lifted his sleeves and stood in front of the Monkey King. The Monkey King was enormous and even while sitting, it was still taller than Jia Yong by a head. It looked at Jia Yong and howled. Several bandit monkeys immediately brought a stone table while panting hard. The stone table was as large as a bed and was extremely heavy, producing a muffled sound as it landed on the ground. Another 2 bandit monkeys came over and moved a stone stool, placing it in front of the Monkey King. The Monkey King slammed at the stone table, the sounds produced was as if he had beaten a large drum. Jia Yong gulped a mouthful of saliva and sat down. He placed his right elbow on the table and extended his forearm. The Monkey King similarly extended his left hand, 2 palms tightly grasped each other. Beside the table was an elderly female bandit monkey who suddenly shouted. Jia Yong and the Monkey King heard the signal and immediately put strength in their arms, starting this uncommon style of strength contest. Bandit monkeys respected strength and arm wrestling was their main social activity. Young monkeys could arm wrestle immediately after being born. Arm wrestling was not only a game for bandit monkeys, it was also a commonly used method to resolve disputes. In the past, the righteous Gu Master Sky Crown Marquis was only a rank 5 Gu Master, he naturally wasn't able to slaughter the mountain with this strength. It was this arm wrestling custom of the bandit monkeys he used to reach the peak of the bandit monkey mountain and win against the Monkey Emperor. He was then able to obtain the monkey group's approval and came to an agreement, opening the trade route. From then on, any caravans that were passing through Fei Ho Mountain would follow this agreement and arm wrestle with the bandit monkeys. If they won, they would obtain the bandit monkeys' approval and be able to pass without paying the toll. If they lost, they would have to let the monkey group take a portion of their goods. With this, the caravans could carry out their business and the bandit monkeys were also happy to be able to get benefits. As the years went by and the caravans abided by the agreement, the trade route began to gradually flourish, and the agreement also gradually stabilized. Jia Yong, sitting opposite the Monkey King, was flushed red, his expression was twisted as he was already using all his strength. However, he still couldn't resist the Monkey King's strength, and his arm began to gradually incline to the side until finally the Monkey King's arm slammed Jia Yong's arm to the table. Victory! Monkey King stood up and excitedly beat his chest with his fists. The rest of the monkeys were howling and screeching, the noise was frightening. Jia Yong walked back to the caravan with his head lowered. The bandit monkeys teased and taunted him while he was walking back, some lifted their leather skirt, showing their butts at Jia Yong, some made faces, and some shook their fingers at him. To think there would be a day where I am ridiculed by a bunch of beasts. Jia Yong gave a helpless sigh with a bitter smile on his face. Jia Long showed no expression, and just raised his hand. Jia clan's troops began to move forward, the monkeys flocked towards them and began to wantonly take goods from the wagons. Jia clan had already made careful considerations, they covered the high-quality coal stones with a layer of colorful and gorgeous silk and thin fabric. The monkeys were all attracted by these colorful cloth, and let go of the more valuable ash-gray high-quality coal stones. The monkeys were very happy with their choices, playing around with the cloths. Many wrapped the cloth around their arms, waists, and even draped the cloth over their shoulders. The whole scene was noisy and chaotic. "Where is Jia Ping?" Jia Long shouted with a heavy voice. Jia Ping slowly walked out, his body was starkly in contrast to Jia Yong, he was thin as stick and looked extremely fragile. "I will avenge you." He patted Jia Yong's shoulder as he walked past him. "This will naturally be easily over with brother Jia Ping making a move." Jia Yong cupped his hands and gave a forced smile. Jia clansmen let out a breath of relief upon seeing Jia Ping moving out, their expressions clearly easing up. The bandit monkeys let out odd yells when they saw Jia Ping's physique, their gazes filled with contempt and disdain. Monkey King was already sitting down, he indifferently lifted the wine jar and drank a mouthful of monkey wine. "They are indeed animals, judging people by appearances." Jia Long sneered. Jia Ping looked weak, but actually possessed strength of two bears. It was just that he used tendon coiling goo which intertwined his whole muscles and tendons just like tree roots, and thus compressing his muscles. Jia Ping sat down and stretched his arm. His arm wasn't even a quarter of the Monkey King's arm. However, after they started, the deadlock only lasted a moment before the Monkey King was defeated. Instantly, the howls and screeches of the monkeys stopped. The Monkey King's eyes were opened as wide as saucers, revealing an incredulous expression. Jia Long chuckled and waved his hand, signaling the troop to continue moving. The monkeys that were blocking the path automatically made a way and didn't make any moves. When a portion of Jia clan's troops moved forward, the monkeys howled and again blocked the path. The Monkey King wasn't convinced in its loss as it slammed the stone table and challenged Jia Ping. Jia Ping had a smile on his face as he gained another victory. "Everyone, I am going to move first." Jia Long cupped his hands and after calling out to the others, the Jia clan's troops and wagons passed through the checkpoint. "Alright, next it is my Lin clan's turn." "Lin Dong." Lin clan's vice leader shouted. The others didn't argue, they had already discussed the order of the caravan. Time continued to pass and parts of the caravan had also moved forward. To pass through the Fei Ho Mountain decreased the losses to the minimum. All the great clans nurtured a lot of specific Gu masters. Ox strength, tiger strength, elephant strength, python strength, horse strength. The Gu masters possessing these went to compete, each showing their talents, some lost and some won. Most of the people had passed through the checkpoint. Finally, it was Zhang clan's turn. Zhang Zhu didn't look good, he was a healing Gu master and wasn't good at strength aspect. Moreover, when arm wrestling with the Monkey King, one could only use their strength and not the Gu worms. If they were discovered to have cheated by using Gu worms, they would be attacked and killed by the monkey groups. The troops Zhang clan brought in this caravan didn't have any other Gu masters except him, a rank 3 Gu master. Thus, they were the weakest in strength in the whole caravan. Xianxia did not have an easy life in Zhang clan, and was shunted aside for being an illegitimate child. The situation had become worse after her mother died of illness. In light of her mother's will, Xianxia sold the family assets and organized this caravan. Most of Zhang clan's people looked forward to this disgrace of the clan dying outside. Thus, they didn't send any Gu masters to reinforce her. Uncle Zhang Zhu doesn't need to worry too much, they are nothing more than goods, it is okay as long as people are safe. Xianxia had a delicate heart, she softly consoled Zhang Zhu when she noticed his expression. The only one remaining is Zhang clan. Tisk, no need to watch, they are sure to lose. I am quite familiar with that Zhang Zhu. It is said that Zhang clan's girl organized this merchant group by herself. Hence, there is only Zhang Zhu to put up a front. Many Gu masters stood behind the checkpoint, waiting to see a good show. They had all, more or less, lost some goods, their mood were naturally not too good. Comparison produces happiness, the unlucky people often felt relieved by seeing a more unlucky person. Many were looking at Zhang clan, trying to find comfort in their hearts. Goods can be lost, only lives are truly important. Uncle Zhang Zhu, you don't need to go, we will just let these monkey groups take the goods. Xianxia said. Sigh, miss, you don't know. We can't pass through without competing, these monkeys are very obstinate, we must arm wrestle. Miss, we can lose but we can't let others belittle us. I will go. Zhang Zhu cupped his hands and forced himself to walk out. Wait. Right at this time, Fang Yuan walked out of the crowd. Miss Zhang, you are my benefactor. Let me be the one to go. He cupped his hands and said to Xianxia. You. The servant girl Xiao Dai rolled her eyes, you are not a Gu master, don't add trouble at this time of crisis. Xianxia smiled, hey too, I have received your intention. This isn't a joke, the Monkey King has great strength, didn't you see some of those Gu masters' arms fractured? Miss, even if my arms fracture, I will repay you. Fang Yuan persevered. You, how can you be like this, not knowing your limitations? If your arm gets fractured, wouldn't it be my missy who has to waste time healing you? Xiao Dai waved her hand in disgust, don't stir trouble. Lady Zhang, you don't know, I have always had extraordinary strength since young, even adults didn't have as much strength as me when I was a kid. I must go this time. Fang Yuan then turned and walked towards the Monkey King. Hey too. Xianxia wanted to stop him, but was stopped by Zhang Zhu. Miss, he is not a moron, he definitely has some confidence. Sometimes, we need to believe in others. Zhang Zhu persuaded. In fact, he had no faith in Fang Yuan. He only thought this would teach a good lesson to these mortals who had brought him trouble. Look, Zhang clan actually sent out a servant. Zhang clan has no people left, they are sending out a servant to lose face. Fang Yuan's figure soon attracted the attention of the others.